Okay.
My next thing is to get rid of the busted glass.
Like those spreadsheets and stuff you do?
I'll stop and see you sometime.
For the self ones? I love it.
Because I don't know where to
Yeah,
stop
you back?
anymore. What? I don't know where to stop anymore.
Oh, it's my,
You saw
Where's Twyla?
yeah, I looked at it. I'm done.
Okay, there she is.
So,
I figured instead of trying to summarize it, I might as well just say.
no,
Okay.
I was looking at it, I was eating my lunch, but
Council's ready.
how did I respond back to you?
You might have. I thought it was a mistake before I moved.
Okay.
Yeah, I haven't even
Thank
opened the
you.
box that stuff came in.
I'll call this meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please, Twyla.
Yes. Councilor Garrison?
Present.
Councilor Lunt?
Here.
Councilor McKeever?
Here.
Councilor Bickford?
Here.
Councilor Ward?
Here.
Councilor Pesky?
Here.
And Councilor Brunel?
Here.
First item, please.
Is good news and recognition.
Okay. I have a note. I wanted to make sure that I recognized the folks who all attended the ribbon cutting for the trail. It was really exciting. There were town employees and department heads and managers. The town manager was there. Senator Mason and Representative Crafts were there. We had members of several different committees there, including the Trails Committees. We had Public Works folks who also worked on the project and helped to make it happen. We had a lot of members of the community, and we had representatives from AvCog and the Department of Transportation. It was really wonderful to see how many people it took to make that trail happen, just get together in one place and celebrate the fact that it's there now. I've gone down it a couple times now. I've kayaked next to it already, and I hope that more people have the opportunity to enjoy it before summer ends. Just very serious recognition goes to every single person who was involved from start to finish on that section of the trail, because it's really a gem for Lisbon, and I see it being one of our most beautiful aspects and a really great thing, not only for other people to see about us, but to help us to see how great things can happen here in Lisbon. So that was my good news. Does anyone else have anything they'd like to add? Okay. The next item, please, Twyla.
There are no public hearings. It would be audience participation for agenda items. Please use the microphone at the lectern. State your name and address for the record.
So this is participation for items that appear on the agenda. Is there anyone who'd like to speak? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to the next item, please.
Which would be audience participation response, which would be none, probably. And then the next item would be consent agenda. Any counselor wishing to have any item removed may do so now. Items removed from the consent agenda will be considered next. Seeing none. Order 2014-154 to approve the minutes of August 5th.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve the minutes of August 5th?
I'll make that motion.
And a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Order pass, 7-0.
And the next item, please.
Under council orders, ordinances, and resolutions, Order 2014-155, carries and transfers.
All right, and we have Jessica up for that. And Diane, did you have something you wanted to say first?
I just want to talk a little bit about the proposed carry forwards that are down at the bottom of the page. This year, what we're going to do is carry forward these items into general ledger accounts, so they're going to appear on a trial balance rather than the expense. So they're not going to be budget adjustments, and they'll stay on the general ledger account until there's no money left in them. So they don't roll into unassigned fund balance at year end from this point forward. So we won't need to be coming back to you for these except for the ones by state statute. For instance, the animal control officer revenue by state statute, that has to be carried forward into a general ledger account. It doesn't go into unassigned fund balance at year end. So every year we'll have animal control officer fees that we have to keep into a general ledger account. So that's what's going to happen with these proposed carry forwards instead of going back into a expense account on the expense summary. I know they were all designated in a certain area on there, but they also appeared as budget adjustments. The other one, too, is, and you can help me with this, Jessica, the Parks Department revenue, the $6,886.54 for her woodlot wreath and admissions fund. What Verla would like to do is carry that forward, which we're going to do, but she would like to have it designated to go towards a furnace for the building that is at the park, because right now it's heated with wood. And I don't remember if the park revenue admissions, she wanted to do that too. So the park revenue admissions, the 4648, she would like to carry both of those forward and designate it to do a heating system for that building. And we feel we can do that for $10,000 or $11,000. She'll get, quotes. We'll actually go out to bid probably for that. So those two need to be designated separately. Or actually, it'll be carried forward into an account called Parks.
Furnace, yeah.
But it will be designated, it actually should be for heating upgrades, I guess, and designated for that. And then any future revenue that needs to be carried will be done separately.
I think should definitely be specified.
It does. It needs to be specified so we can carry that forward into. So that's what I wanted to say about those. So in future years moving forward, you're not going to see so many carry forwards either, because there are certain ones here that are going towards the Public Works garage upgrades as well, which you've already approved, and we need, because we didn't spend the money before year end, we needed to carry that forward. So a lot of these you won't see another year. Okay. Sorry.
That's okay. I was just going to start off by saying a carry forward is an amount of money that's budgeted for a project in a prior year, but not spent, and which therefore needs to be appropriated again in the current year. And this can consist of grants, bonds, donations, or previously appropriated projects. As Diane mentioned, this year we're looking to carry forward out of the general fund $753,804.71. In addition to that, you see the sewer carry forwards for equipment needs in the amount of $120,000, and economic development carry forwards for the Thanksgiving dinner and Moxie Festival in the amount of $43,079.88, for a total carry forward of $916,884.59. You'll see in your summary that I've broken down the carry forwards into 6 categories. Grants and donations totaling $68,214. This is primarily for public safety grants and forfeitures. There's a supplemental adjustment of $212,525 for health insurance. The self-funding programs totaling $36,779 are primarily made up of the Parks and Recs programming. And funds appropriated work not commenced has 0 carry forward requests. Funds appropriated with work in progress totals $465,783, and that's primarily for the Public Works garage. And finally, bonds / capital projects of a negative $29,498. This is made up of our Fire Department Capital Reserve Program, offset by our outstanding bond issues, which is a negative amount given the timing of the reimbursement by the state. Are there any questions with the carry forwards?
I do have one for you. The town buildings, 01140, is that 29.9, is that, made up of different line items, or where exactly did that money come from?
It primarily came from the building. I believe I don't remember the exact title, but bear with me. It came out of the repair and maintenance building line as well as the building line. Those two line items are what we use for repair work that needs to be done.
You said repair and maintenance, what was the other one?
Buildings.
Building, okay. The insurance one of 212, is that higher than last year?
Yes.
Now,
It will grow every year, this is what Diane's referring to, is that going forward, you will only see the supplemental increase versus this amount every year. Because we're self-insured,
Yep.
this is the money that's set aside to pay claims that we may be incurring above and beyond what has been budgeted for that fiscal year based on the premiums that we collect. So this is a designated amount based on the premiums that employees pay that's set aside.
I think that's a good idea because you never know what's going to happen with health
Exactly.
insurance. So that's good to see that amount growing.
Yep.
Any other questions for Jessica on the carry forwards?
I just want you to know, too, moving forward, we'll be giving you copies of trial balances at the end of the month, so you'll see these accounts appear on the trial balance, so at least you know where they are.
Perfect.
I have a couple of questions for Jessica.
Sure.
Under the Economic and Community Development, I see the breakdown of the Moxie Festival and Thanksgiving Dinner and HMS grant. What is that HMS
Healthy
grant?
Main Street?
Okay, Healthy Main Street. That hasn't been spent yet? Is that
No.
part? Okay. And under the library, there's a negative 706 carry
Yep.
forward for Career Center grant. Is that money we're
It's
expecting to receive? Or
Yep, it was just timing of reimbursement from the state.
Want to clear that up?
Yep.
The solid waste one on 03310.
Yep.
I was just wondering what the explanation was for that one.
That's the lease payment for the dump body.
Okay, I saw that on the back.
Yeah.
Okay, I just didn't know if there's something different because
I
it wasn't
forgot
on
to
here.
carry it forward.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Anything else? Okay.
Moving on to transfers, we did have an increase in other revenues overall of around $86,000 for fiscal year end 2014. This does not take into consideration the use of surplus of $250,000. The $86,000 is primarily due to the excise tax revenue at $81,000 over budget. We did have some overdrafts this year, the largest ones being within the town manager department legal expenditure line, winter public works, and street and traffic lights. The total amount we are requesting to transfer is $217,103.63. We're looking to offset this from the following accounts: insurance, Social Security, assessing, overlay, police, and solid waste.
The overlay is something that I believe was on here last year as well.
It
And the
is.
overlay is hard, from my understanding, to judge because you don't know how everything is going to come back. But is 83,000 a normal number from a financial standpoint?
When I first started, that number was closer to 300,000.
Okay. I got my
And the
question
overlay is what is set through the assessment.
answered. Yep.
In the last couple years, that's dwindled to right around 80, 90,000. That typically is what will be replenishing your unassigned.
Yep.
Any other questions for Jessica about transfers?
Yeah, we're over by 97,000 in the winter public works. Is that mostly the like purchases of materials or
Yeah,
overtime or?
sand salt purchases primarily.
Yeah, so we used a lot of sand and salt this year.
Yes, we did.
Yeah, I know. I think we were pretty severely under budgeting that in past years.
It was a combination of both,
Yes,
being,
Worst
yeah,
year
not
in a
budgeting
while,
enough
plus
and,
we were under even for a regular year.
exactly.
Okay.
Can we have the total of the unadjusted corresponding report?
I'm sorry, if you have a request, you're welcome to make it of the town manager after the meeting. I only caught part of it, Dot, I'm sure she'll go ahead and do that for you. Anything else?
But just for the public to understand, the transfers all balance out, so it's zero sum. That it equals
Correct.
to zero.
Yep.
Thank you, Mark. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you, Jessica. Do we have to do something with this?
You have a motion
I knew we did.
for the carries for $906,808.57 and transfers totaling, what's the total for your transfers?
I think it was 217,103.63.
Is that correct, Jessica?
217-103-63 for the transfers and 916-884-59 for the carry forwards.
16,880.
Do we have a motion to accept the transfers and
I'll make
carries?
that motion.
And a second?
Second it.
All those in favor?
Order passed, 7-0.
Would you like to, at the same time now, to designate the park revenue and the rec department revenue to, I've got a total of that here, for the furnace work?
Oh, yes, okay, to
Designate.
To designate it, yes. Okay.
To be used for that purpose?
Should we do that in a separate,
Yeah, I'll make that motion.
we do need a separate motion,
Yeah,
right, Twyla?
to designate that.
I'll make the motion to put the two parks together for a new boiler.
I'll
Yeah,
second
it's
it.
$11,535.04.
$11,535.04.
All right, and we already have a second? All those in favor?
Order passed, 7-0.
Thank you, Diane. Next item, please, Twyla?
Order 2014-156 to set the treasurer's salary.
Okay. And Diane
Yep.
has an explanation for us on this?
This item is to, now that the town manager is on board here, I took the tax collector's duties, and Jessica has the treasurer's duties as of right now, but we need to set the salary, do it formally with the council.
Okay. Do we need to make the motion before discussion, Twyla? Okay. I'll open up for discussion. Any questions from council, or comment or discussion?
The proposed salary is 7,800, correct? Okay.
Diane, can you explain, just for the public's
Yeah.
knowledge, why we're doing this? Just a little more detail.
Like the tax collector and the assessor, the treasurer is also considered a municipal, a public official, I guess, a public official by state statute. So we fall under state statute in the way that we carry out our duties, and we also have a lot of liability with our duties, and it's actually personal liability if we don't carry out the duties and collect the taxes and collect the money and disperse the money in a certain way. The treasurer's duties are the same as pretty much the same as a tax collector, because once the tax collector liens the property, that he or she turns it over to the treasurer, and the treasurer is responsible for the lien part and up to and including foreclosure. By state statute, the sewer taxes are all committed to the treasurer, and the treasurer is responsible for collecting all sewer fees, doing all the sewer billing, doing the sewer liens and sewer foreclosures. among the audit and being prepared and having everything ready for the audit. These are certain things in the state statute that they talk about, and there's quite a bit of liability that goes with it, and we both have to be bonded. So, but we have a personal liability too, because if we don't carry out our duties, we could, be charged, and we could spend time in jail, according to the statute, depending on. And a bond won't cover that. What a bond would cover is if there's any type of embezzlement, the bond would cover that, but it doesn't take care of the liability, even though, and we're not covered under the tort claims if we have errors and omissions. So that's the reason why I'm recommending that amount.
And we have these
It's-
separate offices
Yep.
specifically in two different
Exactly, because
places.
when the tax collector turns over the liens, the tax collector has to turn over the money at least monthly to the treasurer. So if I'm the tax collector and treasurer, I would be turning the money over to myself, which isn't right. And then the tax collector has to turn the liens over to the treasurer. And it's just, that's why you really need to have the segregation of duties and not have one person. Although in some small towns, they have to do it that way because they don't have enough personnel. They would have one person that handles both hats. But in a community this size, you need to have the checks and balances in place, internal controls, and have two different people doing those functions. It should be done that way anyway. So.
I think it's important for the public to know that in the past, the town manager held both titles, so this is something that we are doing to fix, to get more in line with best practices. I think it is really good that we're changing this around, but as I've shared with you, Diane, I think that $7,800 is a little too much, because there isn't really any, from what I could find, any breakdown of how much a treasurer or tax collector gets paid. My estimate, or my feeling, was it'd be about $5,000, but feels like the proposed is $7,800.
And typically, like a tax collector and a treasurer, they hold other duties, and I think that's why you can't find anything. Typically, the treasurer is also the finance director, so, and is responsible for the handling of all the cash and the investments and everything that goes with the finance part of it as well. And disbursement of warrants, it's that person's duty to make sure that the warrants or the checks aren't dispersed without the proper signing on the warrants. That's all part of that state statute. I went and did a lot of research on it today, and there's a lot of things in that statute, a lot of things that the treasurer does, and the liabilities, so.
I think in hearing about this and knowing that tax collector and treasurer, not wages, but stipends almost,
Yeah.
but the additional pay, I think that it's important for us to maybe keep on record the fact that this is the amount for the treasurer, so that when we have questions later on down the line, it might be in 5 years or 10 years or 20 years, but if we have questions about it, then we have something to fall back on. I admit that I was a little surprised at the amount myself, but if that is the amount that the manager feels is properly compensating, then I'm willing to accept it. But I think we should recognize it is a good sum of money, but it, like you pointed out, Diane, it is a big responsibility. So I think that we have to balance those things and make sure that we keep track of it for future. I'm glad that we found, Jessica actually is the person who pointed out to us that when we had a change in manager, that we needed someone to fill those 2 seats, and that's how it came to light. And we're grateful that she brought that to our attention immediately.
There's only one thing that I would have liked to had done beforehand, I would have, yes, we basically knew what she was getting for a salary, but I think instead of sitting here in the public, I think we should have at least had a workshop to discuss it, so everybody could have been basically on board or had been able to discuss what they wanted to do before we voted on it. And I try not to blindside other people, and I did know the salary, but when we had to vote on it, without discussion with the whole council, I kind of don't like that.
I think I had heard from another counselor the suggestion that we meet ahead of time, and I actually did talk with Diane in advance to discuss that option, because I wondered if there would be more questions, if there would be more desire to have input. And I think that in discussion with her, I realized that it's part of that separation of administrative and council duties. And I didn't want the discussion about the actual salary for that duty to turn into a discussion about personnel, which we need to avoid as council. So I did have that conversation with her, and I thought it was it was a lot of information for me, and I would urge you, Roger, and any other counselor, if you have any questions at all about it, because I questioned it too. It's tough for us coming out of budget season and sort of trying to keep ourselves budget-minded at all times to make a decision this size. So I agree that it is a big decision. So.
Would you rather have a workshop on it and not vote on it tonight?
I would rather, if we could table it.
You want a workshop on it?
Yeah, I'd like that.
I think we need to discuss it a little bit more before we go ahead with anything, so.
All right, we can go ahead and schedule a workshop.
Yep.
For, let's see if we have other things to workshop, and then we'll schedule all together if we need to. Can we put scheduling workshops toward the end of our agenda for this evening?
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay, so if there's anything else that comes up, we can do that scheduling all at once?
Good.
Okay.
Positive.
All right, so Counselor Bickford has requested that we table.
We just don't need a motion.
We-
There's not one on the floor to table.
Okay, so, all right, so we'll just move it to another agenda and have a workshop first. Thank you, Roger. Next item on the agenda, Twyla?
Order 2014-157, Water Operations Study.
Okay. Do we have anyone speaking about this for us, or are we going to dive in?
Dylan and me.
Okay.
What was that?
We'll start with discussion, so we can...
Yeah.
Okay. Whoever wants to go first.
Doesn't matter to me.
Basically, the water operations study, the proposal that we got, that we're supposed to pay for, the Utilities Committee did not like a lot of things in it. And we, Mr. Bauer and Dylan, we're going to meet with the respective client and see if we could work something out that was more appropriate to what we wanted. About right?
I think you summed it up well.
Okay, so this is not a dead deal. So what I would like to do is table this until we get it squared around.
So what I just want to clarify for people who are almost as much in the dark as I am about what you actually just said.
Right.
Okay.
I understand it
Okay.
perfectly.
We have in front of us a proposal for professional services from Eaton Peabody. And am I understanding that the counselors, along with the water department, the counselors who go to the meetings regularly.
And not just the one, it was the utilities committee that we have,
Mm-hmm.
private citizens too.
Right, in addition to the counselors, right. That, you don't feel that this scope of study covers what you want it to cover?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So are you going to go back to Eaton Peabody to ask them to realign their
Yeah.
proposal? Okay,
And it's not, where this is such an important document, it is something that we want to get right.
exactly.
So that's why we're very cautious.
Do you have any idea what direction you're going to send them in? I mean, is there
No,
a
we're not
specific?
saying, we want them to kind of give us details on more than what they,
Okay, so their proposal's a little too vague?
Vague.
Okay,
If
All
you,
right.
if you would like, I can give you some, I wrote down some notes on what we talked about and why we thought it was vague, if anyone
sure.
wants to
I mean, I
know.
think other people would find that helpful, too.
Sure. So I'm not sure if the public has this document or not, but there was a lot of discussion in their scope of work about interviewing town employees and department heads for the operations of the sewer department and water department. So actually, one of the commissioners requested that a list of questions be provided in advance before the interview. The next piece was that
To the people who are being questioned or
Yeah.
the managers? Okay.
people that will be, the employees and the managers that will be
Okay.
interviewed. And then the other one was obtaining budget information for water, sewer, and stormwater operations for the current and previous 2 fiscal years. We weren't sure if the stormwater operations are budgeted in a certain line, and if we could determine how much is spent on that one area. Another one was review job descriptions of each employee that, and weren't sure if the sewer department and stormwater operations have up-to-date job descriptions. And then infrastructure, we weren't sure on the plans that the sewer department has for infrastructure going forward. So there are questions in here for the manager. And then under supplemental services on page 2, if any of you guys have it, it talks about if the analysis suggests that efficiencies would be realized in consolidating the current water department operations with the town. We're looking to have them add a piece in there about pros and cons about merging the sewer and water department into a district or going to the town, and then provide a structure of a district and how that flow chart would work. And then go into a little more about not just cost savings, will services to the community be impacted, and how that would work from a budget standpoint. And one of the members wanted to know if consolidating with the town would have any impact on public confidence. So those are just a few of the hand-scratch notes that I took. There was Marie Hale, Commissioner Ken Wells, Commissioner Bill Bauer, Steve Warren, Councilor Bickford, Councilor Mativier, and myself in attendance. We did have 2 members that were absent for the meeting.
Okay. Thanks for your notes. I had written a question to myself on one of those points, and I haven't even gone to those meetings, so I think it's likely they're all extremely good notes to give to Eaton Peabody. Have you made an appointment with them yet, or will you do that from this point forward?
Commissioner Bauer was going to call them to set up an appointment.
Okay. I think it's important that we make sure that they're given the, enough rein to do what they need to do, but I think that if we have this many questions, it's important to make sure that we ask them to answer them in advance of going ahead with a study. So we'll go ahead and set this aside temporarily and wait to hear from the committee and Mr. Bauer on when we might hear more information? Okay. And maybe Councilor Bickford or Councilor Pesky can update us at at some point in the next week or two? Okay.
Yeah.
As soon as I know, or one of us know, we'll make sure an update is given.
Okay. All right, the next item, please, Twyla.
Order 2014-158, charter amendments.
Okay.
Yeah, there are two amendments, actually. You have them in your packet, and one is under 3.01, appointment qualifications and compensation. And currently, the town attorney is underneath the appointment of the town manager, and that really should be an appointment by the council, because the town attorney works for the actual town of Lisbon as a body, so that appointment should be made by the council. So what we want to do is add to the paragraph, very first paragraph, the town attorney shall be appointed and removed by the council. And then under 3.02, powers and duties of the town manager, in number A, just strike "and town attorney" at the end.
Okay.
And then the second amendment is Section 811, General Authority, under Referendum B, number 2, borrowing, major appropriations. Asked me at the last meeting to get emergency language, and the town attorney provided it. And so the only addition, it says, an emergency is defined as an unexpected occurrence or set of circumstances that demands immediate action and refers to circumstances where the town is unable to provide adequate necessary services to its citizens, or where the public peace or the life, health, property, or safety of the town and/or its inhabitants is at risk. So that's added in front of a referendum to ratify action by the town council to approve the issuance of any general obligation or revenue obligation bond in a principal amount that exceeds $1 million must be held on the first Tuesday following the first Monday in November, except where the purpose of the funding is to respond to an emergency. And then it defines the emergency.
Okay. Now, this amendment, the second one on the referendum, it brings to mind for me our recent referendum in June, where we felt as council that it was urgent that we put the town garage on a June amendment so that we could move forward and not cost the town any more money than we needed to get a new garage moving forward. That wouldn't have been defined as an emergency, but it certainly was, there certainly was a sense of urgency at that time. And regardless of the fact that it was voted against in terms of not passing, I wonder, what if another situation like that were to come up? I mean, the reason that we put it on the June referendum was because we knew that we would incur more expenses if we waited till November. So that's the first thing I thought of when I saw the emergency language.
We can bond up, in June, we can bond up to $999,999. So that covers most any bond that the town ever.
But I think this covers that anyway, because if your building should burn flat, you're not going to wait till November for a referendum if you don't have the money. I think it would be considered an emergency. In this case, it wouldn't have mattered because it was under the 1 million anyway, but if it was more than 1 million, you wouldn't want to wait if it's a public works garage, or if it's the town office or library.
All right, I'm just,
I
we didn't think of it as an emergency, but it could have been.
Right,
Okay.
because if you don't have the funds to rebuild or buy something, you kind of isn't an emergency. I think you'd be all right under
Okay.
that circumstance.
Any other questions from council on either amendment?
Suit you?
Yep. And I think we want to make sure that it's clear to the public, they understand that $100,000 limit in there is still in there. So we're not raising the ceiling from 100,000 to $1 million. Anything over 100,000, we still have to ask the public for permission.
Yeah.
Just adding, we're making it more strict than it was before.
Also, at the last meeting under Section 90-38, the use of town equipment, I like the sentence that was added. and struck the use of town equipment, so it says, personal use of town-owned equipment is prohibited. I think that covers us well. I didn't sleep too well that night.
I think that pretty much covers it all.
So, on the charter amendments, so what do you do now? Are you going to set a public hearing? Is that-
Twyla? What's our next step on these charter amendments?
They need to go to the warrant, if that orders the ballot to be printed, and yes, you would need to hold a public hearing.
Okay.
And I think we're going to do the other one for the performance guarantee contract for September 16th.
Okay, so we already have one hearing tentatively scheduled.
Well, you will, right. You'll, on September 2nd, you'll schedule that one for September 16th.
Okay.
So I'm just
And-
wondering if you want to
Same time.
do them
We
at
can
the
do them
same
at
time.
Okay,
Them all the same.
yeah. So,
Probably need a motion to do
any,
that.
no further questions or discussion? Okay, we can entertain a motion.
To put it to public hearing?
Yes.
I'll make a motion to set these three things to public hearing.
I'll second it.
Is that the correct motion, Twyla? Thank you.
For September the 16th.
September 16th.
Okay.
Okay, all those in favor?
Order passed, 7-0.
All right. Okay, and the next item, please.
Order 2014-159, adopt personnel policy revisions.
And Dylan just read the only change from the last time that we presented them. No
Oh, I
other
went
change.
early. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
I'm sorry.
That's the only change, because you had a discussion on that and wanted me to figure out some language.
What page is that on?
29.
It just took that whole paragraph out and just said, no borrowing.
Times.
I couldn't think of an instance when it would be a good idea to loan town equipment to somebody, regardless of others. You know, I don't know, I couldn't think of a good reason, or,
Well, I might have needed to stand next to sometime. You never know.
Mr. Larochelle made a point last time we talked about this, for fire equipment and whatnot, if they have,
yeah, we asked
Yeah.
about
it's all
this.
set there, right?
It is, because it says personal use, so if it's for business, it's okay.
Right, it's
That's
assigned.
why you didn't strike it all together because of Fern's comment.
Right.
So just put the personal use of town-owned equipment is prohibited, and that will cover everything.
Yep.
All right. So we'll look for a motion to adopt the personnel policy revisions.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Order passed, 7-0.
That was the one I was...
Thanks for all your work on that, Diane.
Welcome.
And the next item, please.
Order 2014-160, MDOT construction over limit permit.
This is relatively new. I had to do it twice in my prior jobs, so I knew all about it. We got something in the mail on it, and this, because you haven't had any work done by Maine DOT, you hadn't seen this before, but it did come in because of the Durham Bridge replacement project. So what this is saying, it requires the municipality to agree to issue a permit if necessary for overweight equipment on town streets. So that's all this wants us to do, and we don't expect them to use the town streets because it's on the state roads, but we still have to issue the permit. But if we thought that they were going to do any type of damage, we could require them to issue a bond, but we don't need to do that. So the recommendation is to agree that a construction overload permit will be issued for the contractor for the MDOT projects listed above, allowing the contractor to haul non-divisible over-limit loads on municipal ways, and authorize the town manager to establish permit conditions to protect the town's interest. So if we ever feel that we need to go further with this, you're giving me authorization to do it.
So we're looking for a motion to accept the town manager's recommendation that we approve the MDOT construction overlimit permit.
I'll make that motion to accept the MDOT construction overlimit permit.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Order passed, 7-0.
Thank you. The next item, Twyla?
Order 2014-161, request to go to RFP for CDBG Downtown Engineering Design Services.
Okay.
And in the explanation, it's just requesting permission to solicit bids for the engineering and design for all 3 phases and the final design of Phase 1 of the Lisbon Falls Route 196 project. And we plan to come back to council at a later date after we get the bids, and you award the bids for this, so we'll know what the amount is, to have you reallocate the economic development loan funds for the engineering and design for this project. So it'll come out of the loan accounts that we have. Did you want to say anything else, Tracy, on this?
I have the 196 Master Plan here, committee as well. Before we can attempt to go for the, basically, you were given a schedule on a timeline and what we're looking to do as we're preparing for the grant application. And part of that, in doing the downtown plan, we need to have the design work and the engineering work, and that's part of the application process. We cannot do that with our match funds. It has to be separate as part of the grant requirements. So this is, we're able to speak with the state, and they did say we could utilize those funds for this project. And not only within the engineering of the downtown, we also, want to continue on with Lisbon as well. So we're looking at, getting more for our money, if you will. So we can incorporate all areas.
So roughly, how much would you expect this to be? I mean, I know you don't have the bids in yet, but what would a ballpark figure be?
It's really going to depend on the scope. I mean, we're going to utilize on what's already been in place within the master plan, and what we're going for is the fact that we have the bridge work being done. We also have the scope of work being done that's already in the docket for DOT to look at the intersection and doing, left turn lanes and fixing that area. So what we want to be able to do is that we want to be on the forefront, that as they get into the planning process, we can say, this is what we want in our community. So as we look at streetscapes and sidewalks and everything else in that area, then we can work with DOT and not just have them put something there, and it doesn't match with the vision of what we've been working on with the 196 master plan.
Did anyone from the Route 196 project want to add anything, or?
It definitely is the first step in the process.
You want to get up, sir?
It definitely is the first step in the project, and I think, as you mentioned with DOT, I mean, DOT is going to create some of these projects. The intersection change on 196 and 125 is going to happen regardless if we actually have any input to it or not. So the sooner we can actually get the engineering done for that in that area of town, it would mean a lot for our project and the 196 master plan altogether. I guess, Mark, one of the things that's really hard to figure out as far as engineering, there's a lot of it's already been done. Mm-hmm. So a lot of the DOT's already done a lot of the initial surveying, lands, planning and stuff in that intersection. A lot of it isn't really for us to use yet, but if the firm is able to actually recreate a lot of their work they've already done versus the idea of having to go start from scratch, the price may change a little bit. Yeah. But dealing with Amanda, I mean, the idea of this is just what we had discussions tonight. The idea of between $25,000 to $35,000 isn't probably out of the picture, but if we can do it early enough and use some of the resources already been done, it's going to actually be quite a bit less. So that's why initially we're just going to put it out there and let someone do their homework and come back to us with the best figures they can.
Thank you, Fran. I appreciate the numbers there. It's actually less than I was expecting. So.
And again, that's just...
It might be more.
It might be more. All right. But as long as it's not 200,000,
Yeah.
So it's ballpark.
Exactly. Well, that's all I wanted was a ballpark figure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And again, that's just us, with plans that have been out there before.
Right, and it could vary a lot. I understand that.
Anyone else from the 196 committee who'd like to add anything? Okay. So if we have no further discussion from council, we'll look for a motion to authorize the staff to solicit bids for the downtown engineering and design services for the CDBG Downtown Revitalization Program grant.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Order passed, 7-0.
The next item, please.
Order 2014-162, solicit bids for cruiser lease purchase.
Okay. Diane?
Yep, we're just bringing this to you to solicit bids for two new police cruisers that we have in the budget for model year 2015. What we'd like to do, too, before, I think we're going to try to bid this two ways and have it come back with non-trade-in and trade-in to see what deal we get best, because we may want to try to sell them outright. It depends on what the bids come back in. So we'll ask the dealer to bid it both ways. We may not get bids both ways on them, but we're going to try that. And the other thing is we would like to have the mechanic and Roger look at the vehicles that we want to trade or sell and see which one is in the best condition and keep that so that the code enforcement officer and maybe the assessor could use it. Sometimes it's worth more for us to have it here than it would be for the trade-in value or whatever we could get for sale. Would you like to add anything to that, Chief?
Ditto.
There you go. Thank you for your brevity, Chief. Do we have any questions from council on this? All right. We'll look for a motion to authorize staff to solicit bids for two cruiser lease purchases with the details that the manager has outlined for us.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Order passed, 7-0.
Can I say something on this?
Sure.
I have volunteered with one of the town mechanics, hopefully of my choosing, to go over all three of these cruises and just let you know I'm going to donate my time.
Thank you. And the next item, please, Twyla.
Order 2014-163, accept donations and state reimbursements.
Okay, and Diane? do you
Right,
want
we
to-
have a list here of accounts that typically we receive donations during the year, so we need council to approve us accepting donations, and again, these accounts will be set up in a general ledger account. Hopefully I got them all. If not, I'll be back to you with some more, but we do need to get permission from council to accept those on an annual basis, accept donations. And some of them are state reimbursements, and some of them are just plain donation accounts.
Is it possible that when we get a donation from one of these categories to somehow get an update of the amount that we got?
Or maybe
Yeah, we
maybe an
can.
update on a regular basis?
Or maybe like a
Like a quarterly report?
quarterly basis or something
Yeah, so
breaking
do you
down?
want to see the detail or just see what's in the account?
I'd like to see the detail.
The detail?
Yeah.
Okay.
Diane, on this particular item, donations, well, is that going to cover somebody that wants to donate to the walking trail too?
Yes, if
We
we,
did have a fiasco about that a while back, and we
Right.
didn't know what to do about it, you know?
well, right, and we can set up an account called Walking Trail Donations if you'd like to, and then we can start accepting donations into that account. Do we have one now? Is it on my list? No, it's not on my list. I missed it. We can add it to it, though. Trail donations? We'll add that to the list, and then we'll be able to do that as well, yes.
Some people want to donate a bench or money to put a bench in.
Right.
A seed or whatever.
Okay. Any other comments or discussion or questions from council? Okay. I'm looking for a motion to accept the donations and state reimbursements into the donations and reimbursements accounts.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Order passed, 7-0.
Thank you. And the next item, please.
Order 2014-164, Homeland Security Grant.
Okay.
I'm going to let either the police chief or Keith take over this one, whichever one wants to. Or you can do it together.
Oh, it's wide enough.
What are you saying?
We received the 2014 Homeland Security Grant application a week ago today. It is due the 29th. In past years, this Homeland Security Grant, the last 2 or 3 years, this Homeland Security Grant, in order to apply, was nothing more than a one-page letter to MEMA outlining our desires and plans for the dollars that they had available for us. The dollars are, on the police side, are in the $5,000 range. And on the other side of the spectrum, there are around $2,100. So there's not a lot of money dedicated to the individual communities. The only way that dollar amount can increase is if entities within other communities do not apply. And there's over 45 eligible entities that could apply for $86,000 within the county. Our plan this year on the police side and also on the fire side, there'll be identical applications for the same project, which all of you are familiar with. We talked about it during the budget process, which is the voter repeater system. But we also know that combined, that project is nearly $25,000. And again, there's $86,000 available within the entire county for 46 entities. That does not count Lewiston Auburn, because Lewiston Auburn gets their own check handed to them ahead of time, and everybody else has to apply for the funds that remain. I feel the 4 of us met yesterday, myself, the manager, Keith, and Chief Gallipo, and we had a good discussion on this, and the final opinion that we gathered was that we need to apply for it, even though it's very unlikely we're going to get the funding that we need. The funding on the fire side is the most critical, because if the fire side does not get their half, which is $12,000 and change, there's no other avenue available for funding to make up the difference. On the PD side, that scenario is different, because forfeiture money could be used to make up the difference. The problem is that it's a total project, and that what would be a, let's say, a $12,000 split in the cost, if it only becomes one department, that cost increases to $17,000, $18,000, because that's just the nature of the technology business. So we have a lot of things we have to think about, but we want to ask permission to go ahead and do the application process and see how it washes out. If we get partial funding, we can come back and see if we want to accept the partial funding and maybe have another strategy on how to address the partial funding. But right now, we feel that it's important to at least take a stab at this grant and see what comes out in the wash.
Chief, how does this year's application differ from, you said that previously it was just a letter you had to do?
This year's application is, I don't know how many pages in length.
The environmental homeland security portion, which I've elected to take, is that in itself is 12 pages, maps, overview, cloud cover during the year, bird nesting within the sites. It's you know, as Chief said, we got 17 calendar days, 14 working days to do it. And we really weren't sure until we received the applications what was going to be on the application. They're pretty extensive.
This environmental impact study that Keith is talking about is to place an antenna on an existing building.
Right.
in Lisbon Falls.
That's the preliminary one. They could literally come back, and initial report says discussion with the, people that I need to correspond with, they're saying they're probably not going to ask for anything else. They, in theory, could come back and ask for a true environmental impact study. It's an urban area, versus us going onto a hillside or something like that, so no one really foresees that, but this is the initial questionnaire that they review to ensure environmentally that it's not impact on the area.
This is the most extensive application process that I've experienced in all of the Homeland Security grants that I've applied for. And we've applied and received a numerous amount of grants, up to $90,000+. This is the first time we've ever had to do an environmental impact study to place a antenna on a building that's already in place. This is whomever in action in Washington. And for the amount of monies that's available to these towns, there's many small towns that we know won't go through this process because they don't have the ability to do it.
Okay, so the fire department and police department have to fill out separate applications.
Correct.
Keith, who's our emergency management agency director for Lisbon, is helping with the environmental portion of
So I'll
both
do
of those.
one for both, which is the same.
The same one, okay,
The applications will basically mirror each other because it's the same equipment.
Right.
And it's going into the same location.
okay.
So the applications will, but we have to do two applications because there's two funding mechanisms.
Right.
There's a law enforcement mechanism and there's the all-other mechanism. So that's the way we have to do it.
Okay.
These repeaters, whatever, they're for enhancing communications in certain parts of
Correct.
town.
Our goal is to enhance the portable radio communications within the high school and middle school campuses down in Lisbon Falls. That's our number one target area, to improve the radio communications in those areas so it expands upon our all hazards responses to those locations, no matter what the situation is.
Okay. Any other questions from council? Okay, thank you. Do you have anything else that you needed to add, Diane?
Nope.
Okay. So we are looking for a motion to authorize the police chief to submit a grant application through the Homeland Security Grant for radio equipment. Does this include the fire chiefs? We're looking to approve the fire chief at the same time. So the police chief and the fire chief to make that application. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Order passed, 7-0.
Thank you for doing that. Okay, the next item, please.
Order 2014-165 to amend the fee schedule for fireworks violations. This is the first reading. A roll call vote is required.
Okay.
I think this is just housekeeping. When we did the fee schedule back along, we didn't include the current language in the fireworks ordinance for the violations. So we need to just update it again to include that.
Can we take a look at those? Let me, I'm sorry, I lost my place in my notes. There we go. So we already discussed the fireworks ordinance, we just need to get the language corrected, okay. Do we have any discussion from council? Okay. We'll look for a motion to adopt the amendments.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Roll call vote.
I'm sorry, Twyla. I know, you even reminded me.
Counselor McTevier?
Yes.
Counselor Brunel?
Yes.
Counselor Lunt?
Yes.
Counselor Garrison?
Yes.
Counselor Pickford?
Yes.
Counselor Pesky?
Yes.
And Counselor Ward?
Yes,
We have 7 yeas, 0 nays, order passed.
thank you for the second reminder, too. All right, and the next item, please.
Order 2014-166 to amend Chapter 30, Section 3051, Municipal Recreation Committee. This is the first reading. A roll call vote is required.
First reading. Okay, Diane?
Yeah, again, this is some housekeeping. I wasn't here when this was done, but the Section 30-51 has old language that's inconsistent with the amendments made on Chapter 2-2550 and 2551. In addition to the references listed in the footnote, I propose the attached amendments to provide consistency in the composition of the committee and its duties. So these are just amendments to make everything in line with each other.
Okay.
For the Municipal Recreation Committee.
Any questions or comments, discussion from council on the first reading of this? I mean, specifically, just to remind people, it's to change the committee from 7 members to 7 members and 2 alternates, where before we had 5 at large and 1 each from the planning and advisory boards.
We don't even have an advisory board anymore, so that's
Right.
obviously outdated
Right.
language.
Right.
We're trying to
It's just
clean up
reflect
these.
language.
Town meeting, too. We don't have a town meeting anymore, so.
We're trying to clean up these discrepancies as we come across them.
Thank you.
Okay. So do we have a motion to adopt the amendments?
Make the motion?
I'll second it.
Did we say this was a roll call? Okay.
Counselor Garrison.
Yes.
Counselor Bickford.
Yes.
Counselor Pesky.
Yes.
Counselor Ward.
Yes.
Counselor McTevier.
Yes.
Counselor Brunel.
Yes.
And Counselor Lunt.
Yes.
7 yeas, 0 nays, order passed.
Thank you. And the next item, please.
Under other business, General Assistance Director's report.
Don't we have one more?
Hi, here for the general assistance overall maximums that are going to be adopted. These maximums are generated for the Department of Human Services by Maine Municipal Association. Most of the time, we just adopt them. I know we had questions because they thought they were low at the last meeting. That's just the overall maximum. There is a deficit that we can look at for clients that are truly in need, as outlined in the application that I gave you. And even if there are over-income, completely over-income, if they're really in a crisis, the General Assistance Director does have the capacity to grant assistance for people in need, as long as we document why and the reason. So the overall is just what the Department of Human Services gives us, but we do have the capacity to help people that are in need.
I know this was something that we discussed back and forth and decided to wait until Judy was available to talk with us. Do we have any other questions from council about that?
I think the question that was raised was, are the maximums on like the like rentals, for like apartment rentals, are those,
Yeah.
people questioning, was it high enough because the rates may be different here than in Lewiston or something? And
Right, we are with Androscoggin County, and the rates don't reflect Lisbon usually, but those are adopted in October. This is just the overall maximum that we're adopting right now, so I'm not sure what they will be in October.
you'll adopt a new change.
You'll
to that in
adopt
October.
new maximums in October
that's what I
every
thought.
year. Yep. We had some, large cuts we have in general assistance the last few years, but we do have that capacity to just assist people that are in need.
One of the questions that was brought up last time was a study of Lisbon and to see if we, where our prices are compared to the maximums.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know any information regarding a study, how long that would take, how much money that would be approximately? Is that something Lisbon has ever done in the past?
We've done it for rents
Okay.
before in the past, but that has to be approved by DHS and the governor. even if we do the study. They have to, if we say we want to raise our rent to the maximum, we do have to submit that to Department of Human Services and the governor's office to see if they'll accept it.
And then we would pay for it.
We could, yeah. We've done a study for the personal supplies, because they stayed stagnant for like 15 years. And recently, in the last, well, it was probably 8 years ago, they were raised $5 for every 2 people. So the study didn't work real well. You know, there was a lot of money spent on studies by general assistance administrators. They all, you know, proposed it, and it did go up $5.
It's a lot of money.
Yeah.
Do you have any other questions for Judy? Judy, thank you very much for coming
You're
here tonight. I
welcome.
know you're still recuperating.
Yes,
We appreciate
thank you.
it. Thank you. Do you have any further discussion from council? Okay. I think that's all we needed, right? Okay, and the next item, please.
Is planning updates.
Oh, good.
We're going to postpone that till the next meeting because Amanda couldn't be here unless there's somebody from the planning board that wants to say anything. No, we'll postpone it till the next meeting.
Okay.
Then the next item would be the finance director's report.
Okay.
Okay. So before you have my finance report for the month of July. At this point, there really isn't a lot of information here for you. The budget numbers have been updated in Trio, so you'll see those reflected. To summarize revenues for you, July brought in $241,000. State revenue sharing brought in $28,000 versus last year at $77,000. What's interesting is that our 5-year average collection rate at this point in the fiscal year is typically 13.48%, meaning that normally by the end of the month of July, we would have collected 13% of our budgeted revenues from the state for revenue sharing. And as of July 2014, we are only 5.41% collected. So hopefully we will see this percentage rebound as the year progresses so that we may achieve our already reduced budget of $520,000. On a brighter note, excise tax is 9.5% collected with $124,000 compared to prior year at only $112,000. Our 5-year average collection rate at this point in the fiscal year is 9.34, so we are slightly above, if not right in line with our excise tax collection. The Recreation Department has brought in most of their summer program revenues at $67,000, and this is primarily due to the playground and Trekker summer camps. Do you have any questions on the revenues?
I just have a comment on the revenue sharing. I guess a lot of towns noticed a big drop in the month of July for their revenue sharing, so that was a lot. There was a lot of discussion on the manager's listserv to that, and you probably saw it on your listserv too. And somebody inquired about it, and I think it's the way they did the calculation, and I think it's going to be made up, so I think we're going to be okay for this year. But they did something different in July that they haven't done in the past when they calculated the revenue sharing. But everybody got a lot less than what they normally would get in the month of July.
Moving on to the expenses, the total expenditures for the month of July was $670,717. There are just a couple items of interest for this month. We made our biannual payment to Great Falls TV in the amount of $3,000, as well as the annual contract payment to Trio or Harris Computer Systems in the amount of $15,981, which is slightly inflating the year-to-date expense for the technology budget. We also made our quarterly hydrant rental payment to the Water Department, which again is inflating the year-to-date total for the hydrant rental account. Other than that, everything looks to be right in line with projections. And that is my report for expenses. To update you on tax collection, we committed taxes on August 11th, and bills were mailed out on August 18th. So that is it, unless you have questions for me.
I just have a comment that I really like your, I'm not sure who did it, but the breakdown, it answered a lot of questions. I found that to be very helpful, so thank you.
You're welcome.
I agree. Okay.
Thank
Any
you.
questions for Jessica? All right, thank you, Jessica.
Thanks.
The next item, please.
Is the Finance Committee direction?
Okay.
I wanted that on the agenda because I have some ideas on what I think that the Finance Committee could be very helpful to me in, and that is to review some of the policies that we have currently on the books that pertain to finances, and also review a proposed fraud policy that will be coming to council at a later date, because we don't have one on the books. We have internal controls, but we don't have a fraud policy. But we do have an investment policy, we have the purchasing policy, and I think some of that needs to be reviewed, and I think that would be something good that the Finance Committee could do for us and help us through, along with the financials. And so I think that that would be a good direction for us to go with the Finance Committee. And I didn't know if there was anything else that you would like to see that they do.
I have, since it's got two members here, I guess from the Finance Committee, I've told Fern my suggestions before, so, but I want to make it official. I would like to see some sort this year. There are seven of you on the Finance Committee. I would like to see 3 of your best people on the school department, and that's basically their job, would be the school department. 3 of your best people on the town, and then maybe the chair floating between the two, keeping them all going. That way, the best of the best could know what their, and their expertise could maybe, and that way they're not fighting with each other over little stuff. So, it's just something that maybe you could bring to the committee and see if, you know who I want on the school one and who I want on the...
Telling you what to do.
I think the idea that the Finance Committee would be looking at both the town and the school at the same time would be really valuable for both entities to look at, to understand each other's budgets a little more clearly, and and moving forward to have more insight into the process. So I don't know if you have 3 of the best and then 3 of the best,
The 3 of the
and
best...
then a chair.
Yeah.
That means we have 7 of the best.
Me and Fern are good friends, and we talk a lot. He knows what I was talking about.
Okay.
Yeah, it might make sense to have like subcommittees like that and divide it up, just so you can focus your attention.
I think the idea of
7 people trying to get anything done, as we know, as a board, it's pretty hard to do anything.
So I'm seeing direction for the Finance Committee, which is, as a new committee, they've, our newest committee, have asked for direction multiple times, and we seem to give it in small portions. But I think this is a bigger picture and a better use of those people, to give them a broader scope, and I hope they'll accept it. I would like to see some subcommittees. I think that's really what you were trying to sort of move toward, Roger, is subcommittees focused in the 2 different directions, and the idea that Diane presented us with in terms of looking at reviewing policies and looking at the option of creating a fraud policy, which would be extremely beneficial for the town. So I think those
I
are...
might suggest even, take a look at the entire, internal controls for our whole system and just see, do a thorough review of that and see if you see any holes or anything that can be fixed or made stronger in there. Might be, depending on how much time you guys have, would be a good idea. That would be very helpful.
Any other comments from...
I'm not sure if it would be beneficial for us to ask for an update in advance from the committee, say maybe every 2 months or something, to see where we are with this, because it is August, and before you know it, we're going to be right back at the budget season again, hopefully January or somewhere close, so we're not crunched again. But I think an update routinely on where they are would be beneficial.
And I think as they move along, and the members of the committee who are here can correct me if I'm wrong, but as they move forward in their work, it's entirely possible that they'll realize there are other tasks that the council may want them to work on, and that the council is open to those suggestions, especially coming from the Finance Committee. So to be able to give us a report on findings and information, and at the same time to make suggestions to council. I think that regular reports, not every month would be overdoing it, I think, but every 3 or 4 months, or as the Finance Committee sees fit, would be nice. And then, we can formalize that over time if we need to. But I think that's a good idea. Okay. Do the members of the Finance Committee who are here have any comment? No. Okay.
And I'll let the chair speak, but one of the things that I would make a strong recommendation is, before we move forward at all, that, and I know you got folks that workshop to death, but I think that's kind of the fact of the world, is to have a joint workshop with just not the council, but the school committee and the finance group, to actually set a definite picture, because anytime you're talking about a policy for one, it really ought to be mirrored with the other one. So just to make sure everybody's on board. And I think there's recommendations from the other finance members that are not here tonight that I think would be good to hear, and maybe help that set the course. There's I think, very eager people. I think the chair will share that, and I think the direction is really important. And the idea of overview and policies, I think, is really important, but as Dylan mentioned, we are already clicking down to this next budget season. So I think if the group is to play a role in this next budget season, I think really we need to figure out where the focus is going to be and what the direction of that group will be, to help not just the council but the school board. So if we could actually have everybody in one room, so we actually, because some of our meetings do, as Roger mentioned, the school board does attend, and the council members, I know Dylan's been to quite a few. It'd be nice if everybody was on the same page moving forward, so we're not. I think a lot of the policies you're mentioning actually would be the same policies we'd be looking at as a school policy.
Yeah, it could be.
Your recommendation, I'll let the chair, she'll actually probably add to that more so than myself.
Okay.
All right. The thing is, we work for you. You tell us what we want to do, and we'll get it done. We do not work for management. However, we have to coordinate with management, and cooperation is the name of the game. You let us know what you want us to do, we'll get it done.
So,
Otherwise, you don't.
Thank you. So we'll look into, I know it's hard to coordinate the school committee, the finance committee, and the council into one workshop, but I think if we can put out an email to see what works for the schedules of those committees, maybe we can find something that can put all 3 committees together and have a solid workshop.
It actually could be first basis of the council, school, direction towards our next budget season. Could actually be part of that same workshop too, if you wanted to. And that's, because I know that does have to happen sooner than later, right?
Direction toward the next budget season.
And I would submit that the next budget season starts on the second Monday of next month, which is the next meeting of the Finance Committee. We start now. You don't wait until after the first of the year. We start now. Lead time, time is our enemy.
Okay. All right. So we have direction. We're going to put together a workshop, and I'm going to get the ball rolling. Okay. Next item, please, Twyla.
Is the FOAA copy survey results from August 2011 to August 2014?
Okay. And this was put together by your office, Twyla? Diane, did you have any comments on this?
No.
I think this is just a result, we're talking about those FOA requests every now and then. We're discussing them, and I think this was to put us all on the same page so we know how many of those requests get done, how, what the fees look like in terms of how often they get charged. The clerk's office did make a note that more than half are free and are, does that say free?
Yeah, they were emailed
And
in under an
emailed.
hour.
Mhm.
Yeah.
They were under
of
an
work,
hour and-
Of time, so they
Okay.
fell into that free service.
Twyla, do you know, on average, looking at those that are free because they're under an hour, do they usually take 20 minutes, half an hour, 45 minutes, or is there no real?
They really range from the whole gamut,
Okay.
up to an hour. I mean, we're pretty lenient. An hour and 5 minutes, 10 minutes, I don't think we charge any of that, but it's pretty close.
Okay.
I think that you have here, over the last 4 years, 102 of those we've emailed out, leaving 26 on an average a year. We do that way. So what I did was I totaled everything according to how many pages. I think this survey began because you were looking to see if our copy fees were needing
Right.
adjusting. And we were looking at the larger users of our copy services, and FOAAs might be considered the ones that generally would have more copies, but after doing the survey, we would see that on average, only 3 of those FOAAs would have been anything substantial, over 30 pages or more. Those only 3. So the rest of them are all, the majority of them are under 10 pages if you take a look at the survey. So it
That's a
felt
pretty
like
small
it
number.
didn't really need to be adjusted if that was the case, maybe.
All right. Any questions from council, or do we need further discussion? Thanks for putting this information together for us, Twyla, because I know it's something that we keep asking about, talking about, and it's nice to have the information on paper so that we can refer to it.
Yeah.
Thank you. The next item, please.
Is the town manager's report?
Met with Time Warner last week, and the town attorney, it looks like we're going to have a franchise agreement hopefully pretty soon. The only thing we're waiting for now is they have to send a couple of technical people on site here to look at what we need for new equipment, and also to see where the fiber optics are for here and maybe the high school if we wanted to do live meetings. So there's 2 different people that have to come, and then they go back to Shelley and they make a proposal to her on what they think the grant funds need to be. It's not something that we tell them we want. They have to do their assessment, and then they figure out what it's going to cost to upgrade us, and then that's built into everything. So that's the only thing that's going to hold it up now, although they have been in touch with me trying to set a date. So we're hoping, and I think this is really aggressive, for it to be ready for the September 2nd meeting. So maybe the September 16th, but we're not going to be able to start charging the franchise fees until the following month. So if the later we go,
Get it done in September,
Yeah.
so that,
so it'll probably be November or December when we first start the fees, depending on how this goes.
I think that's actually somewhat in line with what Dale had suggested to us when he first brought it up, so.
But we're making progress, which is good. And then the DEP consent agreement, that's finally been approved, and we had to update one more thing today, but you did, at an earlier meeting in June, before I came on board, give authorization to the manager to sign the consent agreement. So I'll be doing that, so we'll be able to take that off the table as well.
Great.
That's all I have.
Good. Thank you. And the next item, please, Twyla.
Is audience participation for new items? At this time, those in the audience who wish to address the council may come forward to address items that are not on the agenda for this meeting.
Do we have any members of the audience who would like to address the council?
Good evening, Debbie Berry, Lisbon Falls, Maine. I have 4 questions. They're pretty short. section number 8, item number 2014-156, set treasurer's salary. I have a question that in the town reports, town reports, it doesn't have that as a listed job with a salary attached to it. So I was also curious, is there any overlap of duties, or is there redundancy in that? Number 2 question was charter amendments.
Mrs. Berry, these are all, and I apologize for interrupting,
No, that's
but
fine.
these are all agenda items.
Yep, you said participation for the new items.
This is, this section of audience participation is for non-agenda items.
Well, until the discussion took place regarding the items that were listed, I wouldn't have known what questions I would have asked because they arose as the questions were debated and worked over by the town council.
I understand that, but I hope you do understand that it's for non-agenda items. I don't want you to not ask your questions, but I hope you'll ask them of the town manager via email or a letter, or stop into her office to talk with her. I know that just hearing the gist of the questions, I know that she'll have the answers for you and be happy to answer you. Did you have any non-agenda items that you'd wish to address?
Is number 9 available for any questions? Other business?
Well, those are agenda items. I just want to clarify, because it's not that I don't want the questions to be asked. We put this section of audience participation into our agenda so that folks could discuss with council, ask questions of council, or bring things to our attention that were not already on the agenda. So it's specifically for bringing up new items, or items that aren't already discussed. We always do welcome questions and the opportunity to help residents find answers through the town manager's office. So that venue is always open. I personally have seen Diane be extremely open to all input from day one, and I don't see that changing, so I encourage folks who have questions to go and see her. Anyone else for new items?
Next meeting, prior to approving the council meetings for this evening, at that point, can I raise any questions?
There are no other points in our agenda that allow for public input. Mrs. Berry?
When you accept the meeting minutes, at that point, if there are any questions at that point, am I allowed at that point to ask any questions that I have regarding what you're about to accept?
Mrs. Berry, if
My
you
understanding,
have...
parliamentary rules allow me to ask questions at that point, before you accept the full body
Mrs.
of the
Berry,
minutes. Okay, thank you, that's all.
confuse-
Thank you, thank you.
I am going to respond to that, Mrs. Berry. You confuse a town meeting process with council meeting process. This is a council meeting. We are here for council discussion, and we've not only put in audience participation at the beginning of our meeting, but at the end of the meeting to look for input. All councilors are available for your input and your questions at any time, including the town manager's office. And I encourage everyone to make use of those venues whenever needed. I'm not going to go outside the agenda. It doesn't have anything to do with parliamentary procedure. It has to do with what our agenda says we are here to do. Did you have something you wanted to add, Mr. Garrison?
I was going to say, if it's on our agenda, then yes, she's welcome to comment under Section 5. If it's on our agenda for next week, then yes.
But the minutes themselves don't open up the previous agenda to being a current agenda. It doesn't work like that, no.
No, it doesn't. Thank you for that clarification. Do we have anyone else who'd like to speak?
So there's an error in the minutes.
Right.
Sean Gallipo, Fire Chief. In discussions that we had, we didn't make the agenda, so as information to the council, I wanted to advise them that E.T. Smith Hose Company will be doing a Fill the Boot fundraiser on Labor Day for 4 hours in the village at Graziano Square, keeping in the same parameters as the Lisbon Falls Boo Drive always does, with proper signage out a week in advance, and having a safety officer on scene, and only working the lights when they're in red. And it's a voluntary boot donation type drive, so there'll be no keeping you abreast.
Similar to what the other guys do over at Moxie Festival.
During Moxie
Yep.
Fest, yes.
Okay. Great, thank you very much. Anything else? Anyone else? Okay. I don't think, let's see, I don't see anyone else. Next item, please, Twyla.
Do you have any other council response to new items?
I don't think so.
All right, the next item is appointments. Order 2014-167, confirmation of the EMA director appointment, Keith Ano.
I make the motion to accept.
Okay.
I'll second that.
This is to confirm the appointment of Keith Ano as the EMA director for the town of Lisbon. I did have a suggestion for the period of 1 year, and it's not because Mr. Ano has been serving as our director for a little while already, and I've met with him, and he's very invested and very eager to get emergency management plans working for us. We're very fortunate. I'm saying for 1 year because I'd like to take a look at it in another year and see if we can make any, get any recommendations from Mr. Ano and maybe get some regular reports moving along. So that sort of just puts it into that line of timelining so that we can make sure we don't let it fall between the cracks. So in a year, we would come back and reappoint, and maybe reappoint for a longer time, but I think it would help us to see what progress has been made along the way. So we could even ask for a progress report at some point along the way. Not too detailed. I know you're a detailed guy. Okay. All right. So we have a motion on the floor to confirm the appointment of Mr. Ano as the EMA director for the town of Lisbon. We have a second. All those in favor?
Order passed, 7-0. Council communications is next.
Okay.
I had a visit from our police chief today on business of his own, but we do talk. And he mentioned to me that he would actually like to have 3 counselors, along with the town manager, to set up meetings with him to give us our opinions, what we would like to see him do, what for the budget season. Maybe cuts, maybe this, maybe that. But, so I wanted to volunteer, and he had mentioned he'd like to have Mr. McTivia, and I asked Mr. Lunt if he would be one, and he said yes. So I would like to have council's permission to do this.
So what I hear you asking is for a subcommittee to work with the police department and help give direction a little more solidly during prior to budget season and throughout the budget process. I personally think that's a great idea, and I would like to encourage that subcommittee to make regular reports to council on progress and information, and I think that would be a great way to get more information from Chief Brooks to us than making every one of us stop in his office every now and then. Not that I don't like it, but I like the idea. Anyone else?
I think it's a great idea, but I'm just wondering, maybe that from the chief's perspective, where this came from. Why was it the police department was picked and not, say, the finance department?
This is something, Diane mentioned it to me. He asked me first, but if it works out good, I can't see why, if any of the other directors want the same thing, they couldn't have it, with maybe a different committee.
Sounds to me kind of like a budget subcommittee. is what it sounds to me, what this would be doing. But I think it's a good idea. I'm just trying to figure out the whole process behind it of why we would do it, that's all.
Well, I think I think I was just going to ask for your input, Chief.
It's important that we improve upon our process and our dialogue. We have good dialogue now, as Chairman Ward indicated. Any and all of you have been to the office to talk about various topics at any time. But we also know that the world around us is changing. Economies are changing. There's a lot of things going on that have impact on law enforcement. And I think it's due time that we go beyond the workshop meeting when all 7 of you are there and you're all pounding questions at the same time that I haven't had the opportunity to prepare for. And this way we can plan and look into the future and see what direction that the community wants the police department to take. And that could be numerous topics within the police department, but my goal is to deal with budgets, because it seems like every year lately the budget seems to be the crux of the business, and I think we need to start that business sooner and get the dialogue rolling sooner than what history has been in the past.
I think the fact that you have your department has one of the largest budgets, that it's a good place to start for that sort of dialogue, and it could lead.
I kind of figured that.
It could lead to some positive work in every department, I think, in terms of council understanding what the manager is giving us for needs for each of the individual departments. I think having a little more insight and just a little explanation and hands-on is going to be helpful for that.
And Councilor Bickford came to me this afternoon to tell me about this, and I thought it would be a good idea to bring it to council tonight, if that's what they wanted to do, because there might be other councilors that may want to do the same thing for another department. You know, if they have an interest in working on another department's budget too, in the same manner, 3 individuals or 3 councilors.
Definitely something for us to consider. Thank you, Chief. All right, so
You get a vote on this?
do we have to vote? We don't have to vote on this, do we? No. It's just a subcommittee.
Consensus if you want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If there are no
Does everyone,
objections.
are there any objections? No? Okay. We have no objections. Do we have any,
By the way, he was working on my 54 pickup truck, and it's still a 54. He couldn't update it for me.
do we have any other communications?
Oh, I need to sign that.
I have one item. I just wanted to say that over the past 6 months or so, we've seen some issues, some internal issues come to light as a result of our change in administration. We've had several town managers. We have settled on our final town manager, and that's that. But we have seen quite a few changes. We've seen some upset. One of the things that struck me when we were interviewing Diane Barnes for the position, I think the councilors who were, well, we were all involved in that, will remember also that one of the strengths that we found extremely important is her ability to follow procedures and make sure that the charter is followed, that the rules are followed, and that procedures are followed properly. We as council, had tasked our interim managers to stay the course, as it were, while we looked for a new manager. We asked them to follow our charter and our established procedures. So that's when we started to see some things come to light where, not that people were doing things wrong, but that maybe exact procedures weren't always being followed. We have tasked our new manager to do the same. In doing this, it might seem to some, especially town employees, but maybe some folks on the outside also, that she's doing things differently. But I am in touch with the town manager on almost a daily basis, and I can assure you that she's doing everything by the book, as it were. Where she finds something that is at odds with how we should be doing it, she points it out and makes every effort to correct it. And she is following council instructions to a T, as far as I can see. We all, so far, see that she's doing exactly what we've asked her. I think it's a hard thing to do, to follow procedures that maybe haven't been followed properly and to have to follow through with those. She has a difficult task in that, but she has not balked at it one whit, and I applaud her for that. And I think that we as a town and the town office as a whole, with the strength of the managers, the manager and each of the individual department heads, that we're going to continue to see the town office grow stronger, and as a result of that, our departments and our employees and then our town will really, really notice a difference. I see, when I come through the front door, I use different entrances, different times when I visit the town office, and I see a wonderful smile every time I come through the door, and it doesn't matter who's at the front desk. There's always a good attitude and a willingness to serve fellow residents of Lisbon. I think that that's just carrying through into every department. I know it's difficult for everyone, but this is what the council has tasked the town manager with doing, and what we'll continue to task her with until we find out that it's not the right thing to do. So I thank Diane Barnes for taking on this difficult task, because it's no easy job to upset people, but she's doing her job, and that's what we're asking her to do and continue to do. And I'd like to thank you, Diane, for doing that. I know it's not easy. And 10-hour days on top of that, or whatever they are. All right.
Fielding calls now on the tax bills.
Yes. So do we have any other communications from council? Okay. All right, next item, please, Twyla.
Is Order 2014-168 to adjourn?
Do we have a motion to adjourn?
We need to schedule workshops. We'd mentioned that.
Oh, that's right. Thank you.
Good job, Mark.
Do you want to schedule on next Tuesday?
Next.
No, is it next, the 25th?
What's the date? Let me get my calendar.
August 26th.
August 26th.
26th.
If that's something that you can do, then I can send out an email also to the committees.
Works for me.
I can
And see
do
if
that.
they can, and maybe we can do like two things, do
Yep.
that workshop and then do the other one too, as well,
Yep. And if they can't, then we'll just do the one.
right?
Okay, 7 o'clock?
I think that works best, especially with a large group,
Yep.
that people have different schedules.
Right. All right. And I would, so this is the workshop for,
Treasurer, and then the combined workshop with the school committee, the finance committee, and the council.
Okay, and I would urge the committee members, the finance committee members and the school committee members to make sure that Diane has anything that they think should be included specifically on the agenda, so we can make sure we include from all committees. All right. I think that sounds good. Anything else? All right, a motion to adjourn,
I'll make that.
and a second.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
One pass, 7-0.
Thank you.
I'll turn the recorder off.
Man, that was pretty good for a...
Sure.
Pretty good for a... Yeah. Thank you, Chief.
It's hard for me to see over that way.
My days are numbered.
Yes.
Oh, wait a minute, Roger.
It's going to be on the next one.
Back down for a second.
Oh, I get the black book.
Black book.